Right. So before we kick off, I would like to say a few words about a small project we're running that is kindly supported by European Commission, which is called Setting Up Rail Baltic Business Network, and also conducting a study on the needs of the business sector. And I'll be focusing today on the needs of the business sector, and particularly more related to the cargo flow. But before that, this project has three goals. First is to spread awareness of Rail Baltica. Second, build network. And third, that I'm speaking today about, is developing a study that reflects this business sector sort of expectations. So we're actually going to the field, asking companies, asking representatives from various institutions, so what do you think the operational side of Rail Baltica should look like, in the future once we actually have this line? And we have some interesting replies. To do that, also in parallel, we are having these network events along the Rail Baltica route. So we have had already in Helsinki, Tallinn, Pärnu, Riga, Kaunas, Vilnius, Elk, Suwałki, Białystok, and Warsaw. So we're more or less trying to get an understanding from various, related stakeholders here. And these events are some of them are roundtables, some of them are more sort of presentation, questions and answer sections, but more or less we're speaking about, the topics that are, interesting to a particular audience in Finland, to particular audiences in Poland or Baltic States. And basically why we are speaking about the operational side of Rail Baltica now, as opposed to like 5 years in the future, is rather simple. It is because it's never too early to talk about infrastructure projects. In particular, in this year, sort of a business plan will be prepared. Year 2018, construction phase begins. Around year 2020-21, there will be sort of service concept value proposition will be already known to the general stakeholders. And then 2026 line becomes operational. Everything is nice. This is the same year when first cargoes on full Rail Baltica are actually going. But before that, contracts have to be negotiated between the line managers and companies that actually have that cargo. Before that, if a customer needs any kind of specific investments made, he needs to actually make this investment decision, which also takes time, let's say a few years. Even before that, that customer needs to start discussion with his value chain partners, so basically the raw material suppliers, the entities that will buy this production. And it happens that we actually need to speak about this now. We actually need to speak about this operational phase right now, because if we don't speak right now, it might be sort of rather expensive in the future. And who will, who has to, actually push this thing forward? So someone with a, Rail Baltica banner. And I think this is one of the best forums actually to speak about that. Because if we don't really, we have some examples. For instance, we have an English channel example. So the cargo will not flow automatically, and it might be quite expensive. So we see that once the channel opened, we had, sort of upwards curve. It took like 5-7 years to reach, this, let's say, full economic potential, full predicted economic potential. And to reach this, it's like 10 million tons difference in their cases. So if we reach that in 5 years, great. If we reach that in 10 years, 15. So what we would like to now see, okay, what from the operational side has to be done in order for the line to be, successful, and for the line, to actually attract these, related workplaces. And even if you are actually having the line full operational, things like recessions, things like increased competition, things like, some misalignments can actually, also hurt. So, what's the starting point? And the starting point is, we actually asked what the starting point is, and we think that from today, the railway sort of sector, railway mode of transport should actually sort of maybe develop faster than some other modes. Because currently we see, okay, we have road, it is highly competitive. Some companies say that we receive 10 sales calls per week from truck companies, and ask the same question, how about rail? They say like, 5 years ago, we tried, no one really calls us. It's not that even there is interest from rail companies. And we are speaking about slightly smaller companies than the traditional rail key accounts here. Second, road rail service is perceived as relatively sort of easy to order, easy to process documents and everything else. For rail, it is sort of inefficient, it's not, it's opaque slightly, it's costly and so on. So this is a perception of a business, sector. But road does not necessarily fulfill all the needs And for rail, there is a general lack of knowledge, which can be a good thing and which can be, you know, a bad thing. And what is most important that there is no major prejudice towards rail, meaning that if Rail Baltica, you know, sort of line is properly, you know, introduced to the market, it can capture, you know, sort of a predicted share of a market, which I find really, really exciting. And the potential direction where this, where sort of get this cargo can basically happen from two directions. First, these are maybe these traditional key accounts that railway sector currently has, but these maybe one or two will be taken. Where the potential comes from, we see that from interviews, we see that from previous studies, we see that from our own desk research and analysis, is that these slightly smaller customers are very important to the line to be economically attractive. So what do I mean? I mean that in addition to traditional key accounts, to be successful, we think Rail Baltica will have to attract customers who usually transport maybe let's call lower density, higher value goods. It can be furniture, it can be some you know, prefabricated materials, it can be things that are not necessarily, you know, bulky and transported in large quantities in a stable flow. And this higher product value also means slightly or in some cases drastically lower volume of freight. So basically, if it is higher value, it is larger sort of cash that is larger amounts of cash that is frozen, you know, while shipping. And these companies are mostly using the road as their main transport mode, meaning that the Rail Baltica will need to sort of detract some of the cargo from road and put it on rail. There are various reasons for that. Many of these are environmentally related, but this is something where Rail Baltica as such will need to sort of compete in this kind of environment. And these customers, they have, you know, their needs, and some of their needs are well understandable. First, point-to-point distribution is becoming sort of a market standard. So I need actual door-to-door deliveries. Maybe at the, you know, destination site, I need multiple destinations there. Second, companies are interested in fully integrated solutions more than ever. Third, regular services or regular shuttle services to major destinations, to major Western destinations would be very interesting for these companies. And these customers, they sometimes also require services that are not necessarily now are abundant in the rail market, like 24-hour deliveries, or like some specialized rolling stock, like controlled thermal conditions. So this is something that these customers would like to have, and well, let's see whether it is possible or not. And one last thing is that in the Baltic States, some international customers actually control the logistics choices of local manufacturers, meaning, for instance, that IKEA would sort of more or less dictate what kind of logistics chains would be used, which means that for Rail Baltica, it means that it needs to have full transparency. It needs to be sort of also on the side of maybe environmentally friendly, you know, sort of lines to attract these major buyers of goods that are produced within Baltic States, within Finland, maybe within Poland. And these customers, these are maybe smaller customers than traditional key accounts, but they still expect higher standards. So, and their expectations are really simple. So rail prices should be similar to road. Rail convenience should be also similar to road. And current perception, it is that it is not. And also, let's call it a revised rail proposition is expected to match road's offering in terms of avoiding or eliminating, you know, hassle on cost and quality of double loading, and also integrated solutions would be very much appreciated. So you don't have to call, you know, first mile, then you have, you know, to call the rail company, maybe in several countries, and then, you know, you call the last mile. So solutions, more or less, has to be integrated. So smaller customers who have their particular needs and expect high standards. So it is quite a task, you know, to accomplish, keeping in mind that current, you know, road, also marine companies, freight forwarders, they will also not be stuck in the same direction. So we have in 5-7 years to more or less move at a faster direction than current road and marine propositions. This is what the businesses tell us. But on the positive note, in all of the countries, throughout all of the events, we've seen willingness to develop business with Rail Baltica in all of the countries. So in Finland, market participants say, okay, we are well aware of Rail Baltica, theoretically there is much potential, and in Finland, and to some extent in Estonia as well, together with cost, businesses prioritize also environmental factors, which is less so, I must admit, maybe in Latvia and Lithuania. But for Finland, there is this slight hassle that there is a sea between, on the border of Finland and Estonia. So in Finland, they would like to see, businesses would like to see first, a concept proved, and then maybe to invest money. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, awareness is really high. Sometimes people say, okay, it's like maybe even too much. And businesses there prioritize mostly on cost and convenience. Also, they would like to see operational concept. They would like to see, to hear, okay, what are the prices, what are the lead times, and so forth, to engage in a constructive discussion. In Poland, as opposed to maybe Baltic states, awareness is slightly more limited. But on the other hand, aspirations are high, especially in the northeast part of Poland. So for these regions, Rail Baltica will be an important element of their business development in order to reach maybe ports of Riga, ports of Klaipėda, maybe to reach more markets in Finland, markets in the Baltics. And all of these discussions also induced thought, okay, how to increase competitiveness and how to make intermodal sort of terminals and intermodal solutions, work so that cargo can be attracted on, Rail Baltica, and in turn can grow the economies, and in turn can create, more workplaces, which is, I think, a rather nice thing to have. So all in all, we see that there is willingness. We see that some of the customers will have to be smaller, and their needs have to be adjusted to. So this is more or less what, on a general scale, the businesses have told us. If you would like to maybe know more, so we can chat, today, and we'll have this put into report and post it. So thanks a lot. That's it. There are like 2 minutes to spare, and thanks a lot.